Hello, my name is Russell Chandler. Today is August 28th, 2019. It's my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. 81 today. I apologize if I sound funny. I had some dental work done today and I've got some new hardware in my mouth, so I'm kind of conscientious of that, but I wanted to put together a video and make it available. I'll kind of explain that as we go along. I don't use social media much. Probably a little over 10 years ago, I just kind of asked myself, do people really want to know what I had for breakfast, or am I being kind of self-centered? And I concluded I didn't really want to do a lot of social media. So I haven't. There's not a lot of information. There is a Facebook page for me, but I only did the bare minimum to meet the needs of the company that I've been working for. So not a whole lot of information out there. Hence this video. I thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about my history so that people who want to get to know me, want to know a little more about me, have an opportunity to do so. Not quite a year ago, I made a decision that I needed to make a career change, and been working on that since. My wife and I have formed a company. We've spent a lot of time exploring what's next, in my future, and we're making progress on that front. In fact, I think we're close to getting into the industry that I want to be in, and if that works out, then hopefully in the next 60 to 90 days, I'll be able to help lead a company, in the industry that I'm aiming for. So my wife is Ellen. She is an accountant by profession, great partner, great friend, just great support, and my best friend. We've got a couple of kids. Our oldest is almost 20. Our youngest is 17. So we're quite proud of them, love them very much. I love to be on two wheels. I love motorbikes and bicycles too. I'm 47. When I was 5, my mother said to my dad, "Hey, that boy needs a motorcycle." And I thought, "Oh yeah, I do actually." I certainly do. And my dad says, "Yeah, I agree." So with the exception of, 7 or 8 years when my kids were born and quite young, I've had motorcycles ever since, over the last, 42 years. So I'm definitely into motorbikes. I love to cycle, mostly mountain biking. Over the years, I've done a lot of road cycling too. I had a friend that was hit by a car cycling on public roads, and that slowed me down on the public roads a little bit. But most times when I have some free time, I'll be in the woods somewhere on a mountain bike, trying to get over stumps and logs and over rocks and things like that. Here in Alabama, we've got a lot of great options for that. I love our state parks. Love some state parks in other states as well. I've got one of my favorites is in Louisiana. I love the Alabama Gulf Coast. I love my state. We all have things that don't go our way in our state, but I still love the state of Alabama. So what things that we really enjoy doing, my wife and I like to explore. Probably the last 5 years we've done a lot of exploring of our state in the southeast. We like to go places and hike and go to old towns and learn about the history. There's a lot of Civil War information and a lot of interesting facts all through the southeast. We do get out west to the mountains periodically. We like to try to go snow skiing every year out in the Rockies when time permits. And I guess you could say I'm pretty avid about being outdoors whenever I can. So another thing that I wanted to kind of make available to folks, because I've got a LinkedIn page, but I don't really keep it up. I wanted to make some information available to you about kind of my career path, what I've done in the past, the industries that I've worked in, and share with you some of the ways that I've ended up with the principles that I've accumulated through my years. when I was, and I wouldn't normally say anything negative about another person. Gossip's not a pleasant thing, but I won't hesitate to tell you that as a teen and early 20s young man, I didn't know up from down, left from right. I was just an empty-headed fool that had no clue what to do or how to act. And in my early 20s, it started to really kind of, it started to weigh on me. I looked around and I said, well, all these folks that I'm seeing, they have a happy, stable family. They've got a nice house and a nice car. And they got a boat and a lake house. And what do they know that I don't know? What are they doing that I'm not doing? What do I need to do to be like that? And it became an existential crisis for me. I had to figure out what I wanted to be. And that, fortunately, it kind of happened for me in my early 20s. And I've been on the path ever since, the last 25 years. I think it's a journey that never ends, probably never going to end for me. I'm constantly trying to learn and improve and be this person that, I kind of wish I were. The good news is if you do it long enough, then you become what it is you're trying to be through repetition and self-discipline. So in my early 20s, I realized that I needed to get with a good group of people that were successful and learn everything that I could from them. And fortunately I did. I got with a company that did gas, water, mostly electric utility services all over the U.S. And I started with them in an entry-level position. My job title was groundman, actually. And I just kept applying the principles that my mother and my father tried to teach me when I was a youngster, and it kept working. I remember clearly my mother saying to me, when you get into a job, you don't just work hard, you volunteer for every project or special assignment that you can get your hands on. And a young man, I said to her, well, they're not paying me to do that. And she said, I don't care. When you do that, you get experience, you learn things, and then when that job is available, who do you think they're going to promote? And it worked. It continues to work. So thanks, Mom, for that advice. I still use it. So I did that, and I spent about 10 years in the utility industry, and every time that a door came open, I was on the short list to go through it. And in the last 2+ years of that decade, I was a regional manager for that company. I ran operations in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, sometimes Texas and North Carolina, but mostly in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky. It was a fantastic learning experience, and I got to travel, see the world, understand the differences and nuances between Midwestern values and cultures, the Southeast. It was a fascinating journey. And in those last few years of doing that, I realized that I had a real passion and interest with a particular function in business, and that was the human resources function. So I made some changes and got myself into kind of a lesser role. Didn't pay as much, didn't have the same level of authority or credentials or what have you. But I got myself into an HR-specific role in manufacturing here in Birmingham. And I spent about 7 years applying those same principles. Learn everything that you can, volunteer for every assignment that you can, and it really paid off. I got some wonderful opportunities with a great group of people to do a lot of interesting things. We had a lot of problems, but when you have problems, that's an opportunity to learn how to solve them, and that becomes valuable later. So, as I went to school at Jacksonville State, secured a PHR, and got certified through the Society of Human Resources, and absolutely loved serving an organization, in that role. And over time, experience opened up another opportunity for me to become a director of human resources with another company in the restaurant industry. And I took that opportunity and spent several years as director of director of human resources with a small company that became a mid-sized company over the years that I have worked with them. Um, Eventually, in the last few years of my tenure in the restaurant industry, I've moved into a vice president of operations role. I got to be a lot more involved in things beyond the human resources function in the business, in the organization. And, I value that time immensely. I learned so much throughout this entire process, through the three jobs basically that I've had in the last 25 years. I've worked with countless people who, sometimes they say, oh gosh, we got this job open, we got this a bunch of responsibility, who's going to take it? And they look around and they go, well, that Russell guy volunteered a few times and he knows a little bit about it. Why don't we give him a shot? And literally I was present in one conversation where one of the people that I value and appreciate for helping me continue to grow and develop literally said in front of me, well, he ain't real bright. And it's true. It's one of those things that you just have to accept. I'll never be a rocket scientist and I'll never be a surgeon, but I'm pretty good at what I do because I've had people who would invest in me through the years and help me learn from my mistakes. And I did a lot of that. I learned a lot by watching and emulating others who were successful. I also learned a lot by watching people do the wrong thing and promising myself that I'd never do that. So that's kind of an overview of the last 25 years. My passion, my excitement is to be in a particular industry and to help lead a company that takes care of its stakeholders. And your stakeholders, of course, are the employees. It is the ownership and the financial backers. The stakeholders are the clients. The stakeholders are the third-party vendors that serve the company. Everyone that has dealings with that business is a stakeholder in that organization. And I find it immensely gratifying and satisfying to help an organization build an infrastructure, identify the risks, identify the opportunities, avoid the risks, execute on the opportunities, bring stability and financial health and wealth and quality of life to all the stakeholders. It's my thing, it's my passion. I love motorcycles, I love bicycles, I love nature, and I love doing business with other people. So what I've found through the years is that there is a small percentage of people in any given workplace that they don't care about what they're doing. They just as soon see the building burn down. And I admit, they're out there, but it's a small percentage. Most of what America is made up of is people who do care, they do want to do the right thing, they just need help, support, and guidance to be successful doing those things. And that just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. It makes me excited and happy. And when I realize that most of the people that I'm ever going to come across in my working career, they want to do the right thing, they're just not really sure how. That's where I come in. So that's kind of where I've worked, what I'm interested in. But I want to talk about 4 specific principles, because what I'm doing by this whole video is I'm exposing myself. I am submitting to others who can then hold me accountable to the things that I profess, right? And I have no hesitation whatsoever to do this, because it's how I want to live. It's already what I want to do. And having that accountability with other people, it makes the world go around. It makes things work when people are accountable to others. So what I'm setting up here is people that, I may not even know who takes the time to watch the video, but I'm giving you an accountability that I expect to live up to. And my number 1 is safety. Now, it's not a platitude, it's not a slogan, and it's not a means to the ends of running a successful company. It is a much more deeply held conviction. And I'm going to tell you some stories, and I plan on doing several videos, but in this initial video, I'm going to tell you one of the experiences that made this more than simply a business practice, and more so a personal crusade. We all probably know that you cannot run a successful organization if you don't take care of people. if you are not focused on and actively engaged in keeping everyone safe, whether it's the employees of the company, the vendors that serve the company, the customers that use the company, the general public. It's just an absolute thing that has to be first on your list of things to accomplish if you're going to run a successful organization and go home to your family happy and healthy at the end of the day. When I was in the utility industry, one of my employees was injured permanently paralyzed in an on-the-job accident. And I was actually in Indiana when one of my clients called me and said, your employee X has been in a very serious accident and we need you. I asked, where is the employee? The employee was actually in Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. And I said, I am almost in Indianapolis, but I am on my way. And they said, don't bother going to Kentucky. They're going to airlift the employee to Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. So I made the drive, fearing the worst. And when I got to Vanderbilt and got into the intensive care unit, when I rounded the corner into this employee's room, I could hear, before I even rounded the corner, I could hear the employee wailing in anguish and pain and in fear, because the employee knew that their injuries were permanent, permanent paralysis below the hips. And as I hit the room, that fear, that enormous regret, the smell of urine and feces, because when you lose bodily control, when your spinal cord is severed below a certain point, you have no muscle control below there. So let's be honest, it smelled bad. And you know, the impact to me was life-changing, even though I wasn't the person in the hospital bed. I have an obligation to keep people from experiencing that, from being that victim laying in the hospital bed, contemplating a life without the use of their legs. And it's never left me. That's been quite a few years ago, but that informs me. I've also seen serious injuries, digits amputated. There's a lot more that goes to that, but that's probably the most useful thing that I can tell others about what informs me and why that is my number one thing is whatever we do, it must be safe. I would never be okay with running a business or leading an organization where I made good money, but I did it at the expense of other people and their health and safety. It's just not, it's not in the cards. It's not something I can accept. My second operating principle is respect for people, firm on standards. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. We can and we should be respectful to one another while we also adhere to the standards. If I worked for a company that was super polite, very courteous and friendly, but they didn't get me my paycheck, no deal. So we have to uphold the standards. The standards is you get paid what you're entitled to on time, but we also have to do it with courtesy and respect for one another. So my second principle is respect for people, but firm on standards. That leads into my third principle, and that is that courtesy is not conditional. Courtesy is not a part of a transaction where if someone is courteous to me, then I'm courteous back. That's not how it works. We are courteous to one another, to our stakeholders. That's our clients, that's our coworkers, other employees, that's the vendor partners, that's the general public. We are courteous because that is who we are, not because someone else has done something to earn that courtesy from us. It's not conditional, it's a standard. Now there are times when we have people that do bad things and they need to be held accountable, and we certainly will. Standards are firm, but we're not going to be rude. I'm not going to be rude and disrespectful to people, even if they're rude and disrespectful to me, because my courtesy and respect is not predicated, it's not based upon they do something for me and then I do something for them. It's a standard that I live by, and it doesn't change because of what the circumstances are. And my fourth basic principle and this has never changed in all the, I learned it early in my career, and in every industry that I go to, it continues to prove to be right, and I stick with it. Feedback is always welcome. I do not know everything, and in no job that I've ever had was I always right. In no job that I ever had have I always known everything. Feedback is always welcome. And I learned this through some formal training that was paid for by one of those employers, one of those companies that I worked for through the years, made the investment in me and paid a significant amount of money to have me and 6 other managers trained. And it's something that, I feel like it's worthy to share. It is important that each person have a relationship with a person that they report to, so that if there's a bad situation, they can say, "Hey Russell, can I talk to you in private for a minute? I'm concerned about something." And those 2 people go aside from a group, privately, one-on-one, close the door, and courteously talk to each other about their concerns. And I've had the opportunity to work with many, many people, both for and having people work for me, and I will never fail to make this clear. Feedback is always welcome. Do it respectfully, do it one-on-one, and explain why you think the idea that the company is following isn't the best plan. Explain why. And if you make a good case, like I've done with people that I worked for, and like people have done with me who worked for me, if what is presented makes sense, then maybe we change the plan. There are some circumstances where people have come to me and said, "I don't like this idea, here's why," and I still have to say, I appreciate and respect your input. You're making good points. However, there are other elements to this, and so we do have to follow this plan. And my hope is, my practice has been that when I have that conversation with someone that I report to, whether it's a client or my immediate boss, if they say, "Oh, you're right, Russell, let's change your plan. Good point, I'm glad you brought that up." Great. If they say, "I hear you and I appreciate your input, well, we do still need to do this." When I walk out of that room, my principle is I'm going to treat that plan as my own, and I'm going to give it my full support. And yes, some of the plans that I have disagreed with in private in a courteous and respectful way with my boss have turned out to be bad ideas. But I don't say, "I told you so." That's not the point. The point is, remember that you're in a group where most, if not all, of the people are all trying their best to make the organization work so that the employees have stable income, so they can do things financially and make commitments, for a house or for a boat or for their beach house or whatever it is that is their dream, and have success and stability that comes from everybody talking about a decision. If somebody has heartburn with it, they talk one-on-one with the right person, and when the decision is made, everybody does their best to support it. And my experience has been that more times than not, that's a winning formula. But the key element, the key takeaway for number 4 is feedback is always welcome. I do not know everything, nor will I know everything, not even to the end of my life. Even if I reach my 81st birthday, as my mother has today, I won't know everything. The key is to have the relationship with people where they are confident that they can talk to you about their concerns and that you will listen. Not necessarily be able to agree with them, because sometimes we're going to disagree, but listen and be heard. And those principles, those are important enough for me to try to, put them out there to whomever may see this as this is an obligation. I've obligated myself by, taking your time, putting this video out and telling you these are the principles that I operate under, and you can expect me to operate that way. I have in the past, and the folks that I'm leaving behind in the restaurant industry, they won't be coming with me, but they know me quite well, and I think that were they here to tell you about the years that we've worked together, they assure you that these are principles not only that I can and do practice, but that in the long run they work. I thank you for taking the time to look at the video. I plan on putting together more to just basically again, put myself out there and expose myself, create expectations that others may hold me accountable to over time. And I'm very hopeful that this business opportunity we're working on works out, and that I'm working with a new group of people soon so that we can develop that level of trust, that level of knowing what to expect from one another, and believing that the other will do the right thing, what needs to be done. Thank you again, and I hope to have a few more videos out soon. Thank you.